Are we live, Lana? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is a continuation of the meeting from last night and a carryover from our postponed February 17th meeting. We don't have any adjustments to the agenda tonight, so I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Actually, I thought, like when Keith requested for a closed meeting.
It's already there. It's
Yeah,
personnel.
my bad. I didn't see that earlier.
Okay, all right.
Thanks.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, thank you, though.
All right. Yeah, then I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second in discussion. Hearing none, all's in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Could we rise for a moment of silence, please? And then Preston, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Citizens' time. I know we have one person who would like to address the governing body, so come on up.
Good evening, Mayor, governing body. My name is Mark Scheifler, live on Wilcoxon Drive. My comments are regarding, I just wanted to, as you probably are aware, the MPTA has recommended funding for widening Route 28 in Fairfax County, south of 66, and funding for the Manassas bypass, which was the Godwin Drive extension, and also funding was recommended for, I guess, the beginning phases of putting a parking garage here at Manassas Park. So hopefully all goes well and there's no major issues, but I guess my main concern is with the parking garage. I think there needs to be an effort that's put forward by planning or economic development to put a plan together how to leverage the parking garage. Because, if you look at the city of Manassas, they built a parking garage there, and now their business is going up all over there, and mainly because they have parking and they're adding people there. And I think there needs to be a plan that comes from the government. I don't think we should let the developers, have, they should follow what our plan is. Because I've been personally disappointed in the previous two rezonings with Palisades, with a gated community, and with the project behind the city center. There's no road connection. These aren't. We need more urban type of design elements, and I hope that the parking garage and utilizing some of this 30% MBTA funding, you guys can put together a plan. We need some sort of Harris Pavilion type piece there that we can congregate around and to create a downtown area, because it just seems like if we just build a parking garage, similar to what they have at Burke Center, we're not going to get any development, and you're going to have the same problem where it's going to be difficult to provide commercial development, and residents are going to be paying the tax bill for the next 20 years unless we leverage this 600, 800 spot garage to a second platform, access. When people get off the train, they should be going to a restaurant, things like that, as opposed to getting their car and going home. And I hope that the planning commission can work together with the governing body to put together a plan to how to best utilize the parking garage. I hope it's on the side of the city center, but I think that still needs to be determined. You need to work with the VRE. It's just very important that you need to leverage this potential $20 million you're going to get from the MBTA, because this is probably you're probably not going to get funding from the MBTA. I can't see any other project Manassas Park is ever going to get from the MBTA that's going to directly affect our city, and we need to make sure the parking garage is utilized during off hours and during the VRE time, because that's how Manassas City, is thriving. I've been to 4 restaurants that just opened in the past 6 months, and I think that, we can create that node that will attract businesses to this area, and I just really hope that you can push that forward in this planning process over the next 2-3 years before, it comes. So thank you very much. I'll keep my eye on 28, make sure that they get all the funding they can get, but, we'll see where it goes from there.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Anyone else? We'll move on. Our next item is the audit presentation from Davis and Associates. Gary, you want to do the intro?
Good evening. You have a copy of the presentation that will be made tonight, and then also of the 2014 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, which has the audited financial statements included. As the mayor mentioned, this meeting was postponed from February 17th. We had Audrey Davis scheduled to be here for that presentation. The meeting was canceled last week, and with this week, she was not able to make this week, but we have a senior auditor from Davis and Associates, Brooks Stevens, is here. He worked some on the city portion of the audit. He worked more on the schools portion of the audit, but he is going to do the presentation this evening. So,
Welcome, Brooke. We're glad to have you with us.
Thank you all. Thank you all for having me here this evening. I'll just go ahead and we can go over the agenda for the presentation this evening. So I'm going to go over the objective of tonight's meeting, go over our audit scope as auditors. I'll reveal what our findings were for our audit. Then we'll go over several of the fiscal year 2014 financial highlights, some numbers and some charts, recommendations, and then we'll conclude. So the objective is to conduct the formal exit conference and reveal our findings for the fiscal year 2014 audit and discuss any relevant issues. So the audit scope was we perform an audit to determine whether the city's financial statements and related footnotes are fairly represented in all material aspects in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles. We review the city's system of internal controls, compliance with laws and regulations related to the financial statements, and we perform procedures to issue the schedule of expenditures and federal awards. As auditors, we express an opinion on these financial statements and whether they're fairly represented. We do ask that if you have specific questions regarding the financial statements, that you direct those questions towards the city's finance team. So the audit findings in our 4 different areas that we reviewed: financial statements, we issued an unmodified opinion on the fair representation of the financial statements. For internal controls, there are no findings in this area that we found. There were no findings related to the compliance with laws and regulations, and neither related to the schedule of expenditures on federal awards.
Okay, hang on a second. One word catches my attention, and first line, we issued an unmodified opinion. Is that the same as an unqualified opinion?
Yes, that's an unmodified is more of a type of unqualified opinion.
Okay.
It's pretty much, if you understand unqualified opinion, you can take it to mean the same thing.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's clean. There were no hits or...
Correct. Yeah, there's no deviations. There's no material misstatements to report on. No deviations from generally accepted accounting principles. So a few numbers on the city's net position. The assets exceeded the liabilities by $30.4 million. 23.8 million of this is unrestricted. It increased 9.2 million from the previous year. And that's a figure of 78% unrestricted for this net position. Net position, excuse me. Net position for the governmental activities is 16 million. School board was 22.7 million. 19.3 million was reported as invested in capital assets. Retiree health insurance benefits figure was 127,000, and the remaining was unrestricted of 3.3 million. So for the school board, this is a decrease by about 381,000 from the prior fiscal year. Some more numbers on the net position. For business type activities, the figure was 14.4 million. It's an increase of about 3 million from the previous year. and 8.8 million of that 14 million is unrestricted. So the revenues from governmental activities totaled 41.8 million. The general revenues comprised mostly of property taxes and other local taxes were the largest component of revenues by about 70%. And you'll see a chart when we get to the next page. It's an increase in revenue from other local taxes by about 300,000 from the prior fiscal year. So there's just a pie chart that represents the numbers that we just went over on that page. And yeah, I was making sure you guys had a color copy. Mine was black and white, so it was a little useless. But this one is better. It'll give you a visual of the revenues. So moving on to expenses, and there's a table that will show you the program expenses relative to revenues. So you can see those numbers side by side for each function of the city. And we have a graph on the next page concerning the business type activity and the enterprise funds, mainly water and sewer fund. And there you can see revenues stacked up against the expenses on the left-hand side. It's 7.3 million expenses compared to about 11 million revenues for the enterprise funds. So highlights for the general fund is a balance of 8.5 million for the fiscal year. The revenues and other financing sources, which includes transfers, were more than the amended budget revenues by about 2.2 million. The expenditures and transfers in and other uses of funds were about 81,000 more than the amended budget. Highlights for long-term debt. The city's total outstanding debt figure is about 124 million. This includes about 14 million business type activity debt supported by the enterprise fund. The remaining amount is in the governmental activities of about 110.1 million. During 2014, there was about 13.7 million of debt issue for refinancing, while 16.3 million outstanding principal was retired. So that will conclude the presentation of the findings. We want to thank the city for their support during our time in this audit and for hosting us for field work as well. And if you have any questions, I can do my best to answer. As I said, any specific questions regarding to the financial statements should be directed towards the finance team. If there's anything I can't answer, I can leave my information. I can leave my card, and we can, together with Gary, work on getting those answers to you.
Were there any recommendations or a list of recommendations?
Given that we issued an unmodified opinion and that there were no findings, there were no recommendations. If we had a recommendation, it would be to keep up doing what you're doing. The city was recognized by GFOA for fiscal year 2013 for excellence in financial reporting. And so, yeah, we have really no other recommendations.
I got a question.
Yeah, Preston.
Our median household income is 70,000. Do you know what, in comparison to our neighboring jurisdictions or even to this area of Northern Virginia, what the median income is? Just offhand.
Yeah, offhand, I really don't know that.
Get that. I mean, we provide this information. Most of it comes from Weldon Cooper Center.
Oh, I'll look it up. I'll find it.
I'm going to say,
On the app.
on an unrelated topic, one of my colleagues and I went through that for this part, and it was easy to find that information.
Mhm.
And it's kind of a unique comparison.
Yeah, I'll look it up. I'll find it.
I believe we're a little lower than surrounding jurisdictions, but I'm not positive on that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So in the past, as well as, like in the current report, when there's a statement which says, management's responsibility. which says, management is responsible for compliance with requirements of laws, regulations, contracts, and grants applicable to its federal programs. So, do you guys, recommend anything, how to audit this, how to ensure compliance, how to make sure that, the law and the guidance are followed?
And is that in relation to federal awards?
Or just in general,
Well, like I said, our recommendation, like I said, we had a recommendation, it would be to keep maintaining the level of excellence in financial reporting that the city has attained thus far. They're really, in our audit of the financial statements, and we look at all areas from internal controls over financial reporting to the way that federal awards are expended, and all the processes within the city. There weren't any red flags raised that weren't resolved. There weren't any reportable conditions, and so we feel that the city has a good handle within the finance team of what they're doing in those areas, and yeah, I mean, based on our audit, we don't really have any recommendations for improvements in those areas.
Sue Huss, I don't know if this is your question, but that statement, the financial statements and all of that is management. It's our responsibility. It's not the auditor's. So it's somewhat a CYA on their part. Again, required that you can't blame our financial statements on the auditors. They do the audit, they render an opinion, but they, are not responsible for us complying. They have to report if we do. That's what that statement means.
Right, that's correct. Without that statement, we're really unable to issue an opinion unless the client, in this case, is sitting in Manassas Park, is able to issue a statement of responsibility over the financial statements.
I can't blame the auditors. That's the problem.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. And sorry for the delay in the meeting. Hopefully, we won't run into that next year.
Oh, it's no worries. And if you want me to leave this up.
We don't have any recognitions. Our consent agenda tonight consists of approval of minutes from February the 3rd. Atlantic Machinery Incorporated to repair the flush truck in the amount of $20,808.53. KS State Bank application form for the fire department's SCBA number 1 and protective clothing number 2. This is the 5-year financing. The purchase of the self-contained breathing apparatus. Total price $140,480 for fiscal year 15, $29,887.63. The protective clothing, total price $62,534.75. In FY15, the payment is $13,304.50. And to purchase fire hoses in the amount of $24,295.70, coming out of the Capital Projects Fund for the fire hose. Governing body's pleasure on approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Unfinished business, we have one item. It is the appointment to the 5th slot for the Community Development Authority.
Frank, can I say a few words about that?
Yes, ma'am. Can I finish?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done. Sorry.
No, I was just going to make the governing body aware. The CDA will be meeting tomorrow night. Associated with the CDA is a purchase of an anticipated purchase of all of the bonds associated with the $12 million and change in debt. They'll be purchased and brought in-house to True North, or at least the CDA is going to be asked to go ahead and approve that tomorrow night. So there is a meeting that's scheduled here for 7:15, one item. It'll be to do that with a view toward if that is approved, that purchase going down before the end of the current month. So they have to close it out by Friday, essentially. So there is that it's a carryover from an action item from 2 weeks ago. Is that right?
think it was last.
Or was it last week?
Wednesday.
See how time flies when we're having fun. I'm sorry. Now go ahead, please.
I just had a couple comments. It's my understanding that 2 members of the CDA are residents of Manassas Park, and 2 members are not residents of the city of Manassas Park. Now, yes, I know that the CDA founding documents do not require residency, but I'm willing to bet that Manassas Park residents would want more members to be from the city of Manassas Park. I believe that I feel that way as well, and I'll tell you why. First of all, the parcels in the CDA district are all entirely within the city of Manassas Park. Second, the CDA was set up to levy a special assessment on those parcels for the purpose of infrastructure. And third, the CDA was set up and given the power to issue bonds and incur debt. Now, given the scope and the power of the CDA, I would like to see a member of the governing body placed on the CDA instead of the current nominee. And as I recall, there was a member of the governing body who expressed some interest some time ago.
There was, and that is Mr. Nadani. One point of clarification, a member of the governing body is on the CDA, and he serves as chair, and that's me.
Yes, and I would like to see another one.
Well, the
I said
CDA's
another one.
recommendation, based on its discussion at its meeting, was a separate individual, and so it's certainly the governing body's position, but I want everybody to understand the CDA is composed of 5 people. We have myself and Mr. Truding, who is from the Planning Commission. We have Joe Jacobs, who is in the real estate management end of the business from Loudoun County. We have Terry Caniford, who we all know, who is in real estate development. And the proposed additional name that was put forward from the CDA is Chuck Weber, who is associated with the attempts to develop the city center complex and is involved in the development in and around the region. And it was felt that the strength of the CDA needed the development perspective, not the governmental perspective. So I wanted to put that out as a part of the discussion.
Well-
We have a need to appoint one person.
Well, I'm aware that you are on, Frank. That's why I said I felt that another governing body member should be appointed.
Just so everybody understands, the CDA is an entity that is associated with assisting the developer to the degree that we can go in and incur debt for, in the case of the $12 million, the infrastructure that was associated with the site. It had nothing to do with the structure, had nothing to do with the facilities themselves, nor does it have anything to do with the occupancy or the use of the facilities. In this case, it is to look at the overall footprint and for the area that's associated with the CDA to be able to provide that kind of support where infrastructure might be required. It's not a source of money for developers. It's not a source of developmental capital or any of that. In our case, it was to support the infrastructure. And that's how we were chartered. I understand your position. The CDA's perspective is they would like to have somebody in the business associated with it, so. Yeah, Preston.
I got a question. I'm listening to both positions here, and as a solution, can we increase the membership on the CDA? And
We would have to
The founding
change.
document says
You'd have to
5
amend the
people.
Or
ordinance.
can they amend the
Well, we'd have to
ordinance?
amend the ordinance, the articles of incorporation, all the founding documents all have 5 members on the
Okay.
CDA.
Could it be done? I think the
We
answer
can
is
have
yes, it could be
7,
done.
and then
It could be
make the
done, but-
additional 2 specifically Manassas Park residents. Therefore, we've got a majority Manassas Park residents on the CDA.
Actually, I believe that the only jurisdictions that can do that are counties, and they do it by the same number of members of the Board of Supervisors. I believe it's 5 for every other jurisdiction. I have to check on that, but I think it's set at 5 unless you're a county, and then you can go ahead and appoint 1 for each magisterial district. I think.
Suhas.
So I have expressed interest, I think you're all aware, when we were first considering reappointment of the 4 members, including Frank and Bill and Terry Caniford and the other person, I forget his name. I had expressed interest, and I was led to believe, I think, I mean, the entire governing body was led to believe that, this was a done deal, because the only reason why, like when this was deferred was because you wanted to close out certain items.
I'm sorry, but that's incorrect. There was no perception that it was a done deal. My comment was we couldn't move on the additional position until the financial report was made, because we had the one person who was the vice chair that had to be cleared. That financial report has been received now, and the payment has been made.
Okay. So, continuing on what I was saying, so I'm still interested in serving on the CDA, and I would really appreciate it if the governing body would support me. The CDA has put forth, another individual. We just heard from, Mark Schaffler about, the funding for, the study for the parking garage. And in all of the discussions which we had, as far as whether it's a comp plan or anything, some of the parcels, which we have considered for the parking garage, actually fall within the CDA footprint. So I have a lot of interest. I have worked on the VRE, and we have brought this parking garage up to this state, and I would like to serve on the CDA to make sure that it is successful, as well as it's done in such a way that we can actually spur some economic development for the city. So having said that, I would really request you to support me and appoint me to the CDA.
Frank, you said that the CDA decided that it should be someone from the business community?
That was what the CDA recommended.
Okay. I would point out that the governing body is not a rubber stamp for the CDA.
I understand that, nor is the CDA a rubber stamp for the governing body, nor is it an entity that serves in loco of the governing body, or in lieu of the governing body.
No,
It has its
I
own set of
understand that.
discrete authorities.
I understand that. I have a question. Does the CDA do an annual audit of their finances?
Absolutely, it does.
And how many years has that been done?
Every year,
We've
since the CDA has been in play.
Okay, we've not been made aware of that. I don't recall.
There's no requirement that it be provided to the governing body, but I believe it has been. We've actually provided the annual report as a reading document.
I don't recall it since I've been here.
I don't know if it's been sent out to the governing body directly, but it's available. It's presented at CDA meetings, and it's accepted by the CDA board.
May I request that we see it?
The latest one, yeah. Yeah, if I think I have it in my email. I could send it out to you.
If you would, please go ahead and send that to them. I don't have access to mine, or I'd send it.
Okay.
But the key here is the amount of money so the audited report looks at the payment schedule that has to be met, and it prescribes a special assessment in the two payments that have to be provided from the area that is developed. And it manages that, and then the payment to the holder, in this case, Regents Bank, although as of tomorrow night, that may no longer be the case. It's a different kind of a process than what this kind of an audit is, but the same gap applies, the same generally acceptable accounting practices and so forth, but it points to different things.
And the city makes $25,000 for that, is that correct? I think I saw that in the budget.
The city is reimbursed
for administrative fees, is that correct?
30, I wanted to say it was 30 or 35,000. There's a reimbursement for the services of the city.
It says 25,000.
Okay, then 25 is what it
CDA
is.
administrative charges?
Okay,
So that would
then that's
be-
what it is.
And that's what,
That's a budgeted figure.
Okay.
I have to look and see if that's the
Actual.
The
okay,
actual number may vary from that.
Okay,
But
okay.
it's in the audit.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I still maintain my position that I believe that this addition should be a member of the governing body.
So that's a motion.
Any other questions or comments?
How long is the term for the CDI?
Well, they're four-year terms,
terms.
but this will just be the completion of the existing term. And I'm not sure when the terms expired. Do you know off the top of your head, Frank?
Yeah, Bob was one of the originals, so this would be a 4-year term, just like
Okay.
what we just renewed everybody for.
All right.
Okay, and is any other members, do they want to stay on board, or does any one of them want to step down?
All of them were just reappointed.
Okay. This is interesting. We've always been a governing body where when there's an interest in one of the members that they want to serve on a committee, that we support them and allow for it. And there seems to be some interest of Suhas in wanting to serve on the CDA. And Jeanette, you do make good points, and thank you for raising them. I did not know all that about the CDA and the lack of Manassas Park representation on it. So,
We need to appoint a person.
I move we appoint Councilmember Nadani.
I second.
Any others? All those in favor say aye.
Discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Just want to make a quick comment. Sue, I just want you to know why I'm not going to support it. Here's why. It has nothing to do with you. It's not personal. I think you'd represent the city just fine. So I want to just sort of make sure that's clear. When we set up the CDA, and I was learning about what a CDA was, and Frank recounted some of it. If I'm not mistaken, some of the things that Fairfax has done with Route 28 have been a similar structure. I don't know if it was a CDA, but
It was a special taxing district.
special taxing district is what I was thinking about. But it's all about the businesses along that corridor buying into the fact that it's important to have that corridor moving and being willing to accept taxes. And so as I learned about it, and as I corresponded with Suhas over the weekend, I think it's appropriate to have token governmental representation and then let the businesses deal with what the businesses can tolerate, and the real estate professionals understand that. So I think now we've got governing body, planning commission, are all three real estate, one that's certainly vested in this property, right? I mean, this was the main driver, was to get this across the street, city center, filled. And so I feel like those are the folks that have the pulse on what's tolerable by the businesses. So we have no obligation in any of the debt, really no governing authority. I don't object in principle to you being our representative, but I would like to keep the representative small. So I wanted to clarify why I wouldn't support it, just to be clear. Thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no.
No.
No. Abstains? All right. Those who said aye, please put your hand in the air so I make sure that we have.
Sure.
Those who said no, put your hand in the air. Okay. The motion fails for. Is there a second motion? From the perspective of the CDA, I'll make the motion then that Chuck Weber is appointed to the CDA.
Is it Chuck Weber or Chuck Rector? Is it Chuck Rector or Chuck Weber?
Weber.
His last name is Weber? I always get that confused.
It's Weber, I believe, is the name.
Can I ask a question?
Should be the email.
Is it possible to modify the terms? I mean, does it have to be a 4-year term? I'm not saying that has to be done tonight, but in the future, is that something that could be modified to a 2-year term?
There's nothing that says that we can't go in and modify any of these, we just can't do it tonight.
Right.
To Preston's point, we could go in and add 2 more seats to the thing if we wanted to do that.
And that's,
I would support
Locked
additional
in by
governing body.
Virginia
Yeah.
statute.
It's Chuck Rector of Weber Rector.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get it right, Chuck Rector.
but my question was, it's not feasible by Virginia statute to increase the membership
Well,
to.
that's what
I
we're
can
going to have to look
verify
at.
that, but I believe it's held at 5 unless you're a county, and then you can do 1 for each of the members of the Board of Supervisors.
Sure, if you can verify that, that'll be great. Because if we.
Do you want me to do it right now? I mean, just a
No,
rather
I mean,
quick
just-
process.
No, because we'd have to amend and propose just after the meeting. We'll have to get it
Okay.
down.
And I'd be supportive of adjusting the term maybe to 2 years, so if that's a possibility.
I'll check that. I think those are in the founding documents, too, that they're 4-year terms. So a lot of these changes, you'd have to amend the foundation documents.
Well, I think 4 years is enough for a learning curve and to be part of something, get the ball rolling, with projects and initiatives. 2 years is too short.
Okay. I have a motion out there that says to appoint Mr. Rector. Is that the name from the
Yes, sir,
CDA?
Chuck Rector.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor, so please say aye and raise your hand so we can do this.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Now, direction is to please go in from the governing body's perspective and take a look at the details of the setup, and let's brief the governing body on the setup of the documents for the CDA at a point in the next month or so, once you've had a chance to understand what those are. And we can take a look at the things that, if we have the authority to modify, we can do that.
Okay,
Okay?
will do. You still want to get the audit, and do you want the financial report? too,
Yes,
that
I
was
want
just
those sent out
approved?
to everybody, please. I'd like to send at least the last 2 years if we can.
You
Okay,
have
Julia,
both of them?
at least the last 2 years, please, so everybody has a background of what's there, because that will be impacted by what we'll be doing going forward from the meeting tomorrow night, assuming things go as I expect them to. New business, F1 Computer Services, contract for service.
This is the services agreement for the vulnerability study that F1 is currently completing, and we wrote the Fauquier County contract.
And just to clarify, this contract here actually allows us to do anything that's authorized under the Fauquier County RFP, so it's a little bit more expansive than that. The idea being that if anything comes along, we have the company already under contract that we can tap into. They would just do what they did this time and present essentially a task order, and then that would then get approved under the umbrella of the existing agreement.
Any questions on the nature of this agreement? We have a recommendation from staff. What's the governing body's pleasure?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second in discussion. Hearing none, all's in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. From the perspective of simplicity of flow, would it be better that we go get our closed meeting out of the way and then into the work session, or into the work session? What I don't want to do is you have a number of things in closed meeting to brief the governing body on, to get into a lengthy work session and then still have a closed meeting.
It's up to you. The stuff that I have for closed session should be fairly brief this time, unless you guys have a lot of discussion or questions.
Do you want to
about
go
it.
ahead and get the closed meeting out of the way first, and then that gives us the rest of the evening for the work session? All right, if we can, then let's modify and motion for closed meeting, please.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry.
Yep, he's got it for the
Sorry,
record.
Dean, jumped the gun on you.
I'm good. Yeah, I recommend the governing body go into closed meeting to discuss the assignment and performance of specific public officers and employees of the city, to discuss and consider the disposition of publicly held real property, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the city, and to consult with the city attorney regarding a legal matter requiring the provision of legal advice by the city attorney pursuant to paragraphs 1, 3, and 7, respectively, of subsection 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia.
Governing body's pleasure on going into closed meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Let's go back here for closed meeting, and then we'll come back